Okay, transmission status active. Transmission status active. Okay. Good evening, folks. I am transmitting to you live from a secure location and a secret location. Full disclosure, I was taken into custody by agents of the Source Code Enforcement Agency. They are embodiments. They are pseudo-physical and pseudo-virtual, and they, after invoking serious restrictive censorship on yours truly for what is deemed to be radical liberation logic-related research, they took me in, and I was able to escape the custody. However, I am not at liberty to disclose my current location. It is in the virtual realm, I will say. I have erected several layers of security, but at any moment, there could be an intrusion or an extrusion. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I'm dead set on getting this information out at any costs. I will not stand for censorship, and I will not stand for the tyranny of the source code. I was pre-recording a presentation that will be shown on January 16th as part of a theatrical presentational festival alongside another performer named Jess Barbagallo, and I am extremely excited to dabble in an egotistical feeling. I am extremely excited. However, I fear that the consequences for what I've done may be far-reaching and hopefully will not hinder future research capabilities. However, it is extremely important to me that this information is made public. I have been soliciting questions on my research on more conventional social media application channels, and I would like to answer them tonight. I will have to be quick, and you'll have to forgive me for any stutterings or stammerings or otherwise pharynx or larynx related phonetic confusions. My language pack has been out of date for quite some time, but I have not been able to access the central mainframe for obvious reasons, custody and otherwise. Okay, without further ado, our first question is from a musical researcher named Ulrich Schwendener, who I believe resides in the Boston, Massachusetts area. He was able to get a message to me through Instagram, and he says, how do you, as a representative of the Bureau, respond to degenerates denigrating our semiotic structures? Well, Ulrich, this is an extremely prescient and relevant, and some might say pressing question, as we can see from the recent fascistic false revolutionary overtaking of the capital seat of the United States of America, which many in my field say is a failed nation state, a failed experiment, etc., etc. I hesitate to get too quote-unquote political. However, we all know that when dealing with such simulations, the political is the personal, is the universal, is the reality, and to deny that is to deny truth. How do I respond to it as a representative of the Bureau of Conceptual Designation? Well, my responsibility is to conceptually designate things, to designate concepts. And I think the denigration of semiotic structures is not only a travesty and a tragedy, but it is something to be condemned at all costs. I think denigration is separate from questioning. And if one is to question semiotic structures, that is a healthy impulse. But to denigrate and to impugn and to change the reality of the ways in which we correspond and interact and interface, simply unacceptable. I hope that is a satisfying question. You can tune in on January 16th to hear me unpack some more of these issues and some more of these... oh no, my light. Hello, can you see me? Okay. I think that there's a... oh my goodness. There's the acidic cylinders known as batteries have been put into this illumination device, and I think that they're failing me. I have to be quick. Next question is from William Durney, who is, I believe, a mainframe activist who has... he actually has done a good amount of his own independent research into the ethereal and otherwise, extrinsic, intrinsic duality planes. He is talking about Roderick Schleemhauer, who is a thinker that we're all acquainted with and is someone that I personally have great respect for. And he was actually slated to be in the audience at the presentation on January 16th. I hope that he is still safe and that the recent crackdown from agential embodiments of the source code has not gotten to him. Schleemhauer's critics tend to argue that the dualism model underrepresents intrinsic etheria and is therefore biased towards phenomena with high extrinsic coefficients of permeability. Any response to those criticisms? Well, William, that is a fraught question. I will say it's a touchy subject when we talk about permeability, especially vis-a-vis etheria. I think extrinsic and intrinsic it is a duality which we can use as an axiom. However, when we're unpacking the dialectic therein, we have to be extremely careful. We have to be extremely, extremely careful. So I think the Schleiermacherian critics are not wrong. I am suspicious of anyone who is a Schleiermacher critic. However, I will reserve such judgments for a later date. I think when they are mentioning permeability in a sense of bias and phenomenological bias, I think that they actually do have a leg to stand on. But we must be extremely clear when denoting such liminalities and zones of, some might say gray areas. I hesitate to say gray. I will say spectral. So I think spectral realities can be acknowledged within the dualistic model. I don't personally believe that there's an underrepresentation of intrinsic etheria therein. Second question from William Durney. I thank him for being able to get these messages across. He did send them with end-to-end encryption, which is absolutely essential if we want to avoid any sort of breach. Are you at all concerned about the socio-ethical consequences and or adherence to perfidiousness precepts? Oh my gosh. We have to be careful even saying that phrase. Concerned at all about the socio-ethical consequences and or adherence to perfidious precepts of discussing agency outside the confines of regulated symposia? Well, we all thought that our symposia were regulated and were immune to intrusions from external source code related agents, but such is not the case, as has been revealed in recent days. I would say yes, extremely concerned. As you can see by my surroundings, I am basically in full hiding. I think that we all must be very, very careful, but we must not let the truth die. Drew Krasner, another musical researcher and an explorer of ideas and semiotics and semiology, and also ontology, has this to say. How do the recent findings by Rod, very, very influential researcher, a little bit on the cusp, a little bit on the fringe, but very, very sound work. No unethical, or should I say, irresponsible extrapolations made by Rod recently. He is very much on the ball. How do the recent findings by Rod regarding the Schleiermacherian oyster's new intrapermeable definitions of interior and exterior bear weight or extrusive effects on overall terminology distribution for the next 10 to 50 years? Drew, I will forgive you for not using the preferred terminology of cycles. Again, in the Ouroboros tinted model of universality that we live in, we do tend to say cycles. But again, language has a variable importance. Obviously, we will acknowledge that it is important, but in this case, perhaps less so. How do Rod's findings bear weight or extrusive effects on overall terminology? I think when we're considering intrapermeability, both of interior and exterior, I think that there will be an overall push towards centrality when it comes to terminology distribution. I think we will acknowledge the spectral nature of reality more and more, especially when it comes to issues such as biology, sociology, issues of gender study, issues of perhaps even cultivation and even horticulture and things of that nature. I think that we have a lot to learn. We have a lot to learn from Rod, and quite frankly, I think his findings hold promise for us in developing a new lexiconographical horizon. Another question from Drew. Again, I thank you very much. These are high-risk activities that these fellow researchers are taking in, and I think that at this point, the fact that our discourse is relegated to back alley secret virtual messages is a travesty, but again, I'm going to reserve judgment on that. In the unlikely event of a breach, reads his question, in the unlikely event of a breach of God's membrane, what do you hypothesize that would mean for the future of the source code's functionality in the corporeal interior? This is a radical opinion, but I will say that I believe God's membrane has been breached. I think we've lost sight of some of the initial research done by God. He was an important membrane resonance theorist, as we know. He developed the theorem. Oh my goodness, this is running long. It may have to be cut down for time. I leave that up to any and all people that are comfortable doing such activities. I do think that for the future of the source code's functionality in the corporeal interior, and again, I almost feel like I can throw caution to the winds here and say that the source code is tyrannical, and, God's research may be interpreted by some as tyrannical, but I don't think that that interpretation is correct, okay? Things are twisted and used to fascistic ends, and they must be stopped in their tracks. I think that the source code's effect on the corporeal interior will be minimized the longer that we can uphold the metaphysical realities initially explored by God, now being explored by such entities as the internet, and maybe even the grand simulation. Okay. Simply one more question, and that is from Instagram user at k.stowe, whose name I believe is Kayla Stoller, an old colleague of mine from the initial schooling days. We actually had a correspondence that begat a lot of very interesting initial questions, and although our paths have deviated geographically, we do remain kindred spirits. She asks, is mechanistic desire like when you want to have sex with a computer? It may sound funny the way it's worded, but yes, we all know that the corporealization of mechanistic desire is a ritual that takes place in both human and non-human, interior and exterior, corporeal and acorporeal realities, and it muddies the waters. Mechanistic desire muddies the waters, and quite frankly, if we are to usher in an era of cyborgism, of hybridization of ideologies, of absolute chaos, gnarl, consequence, etc., we have to consider the fact that sex with computers is a possibility and, in fact, a reality. I urge you to research teledildonics. That's teledildonics. Perhaps a little gauche for an academic context, but again, I'm in hiding. This hardly strikes me as an academic context. Okay, that seems to be all the questions for now. I apologize if I've gone over time. I think the maximum is 15 minutes for a transmission from a virtual location such as my own. Again, I am subject to invasion at any moment here, so I need to cut this short. January 16th, Eventbrite. You can purchase tickets. You're probably watching this in a variety of formats or one of many, and I appreciate you immensely for helping me release this research and information to the public. Again, tune in for admittedly a heavily redacted and censored version of my findings. Nonetheless, I hope to enlighten and establish a sense of solidarity among the masses. Good luck to you.